Sugar, starring Alan Bennett as Graham.
I'd just taken her tea up this morning when she said, "Graham, I think the world of you." I said, "I think the world of you." And she said, "That's all right then." I said, "What's brought this on?" She said, "Nothing. This tea looks strong. Pull the curtains." Of course, I knew what had brought it on. She said, "I wouldn't like you to think you're not number one." So I said, "Well, you're number one with me too." What it was, we'd had a spot of excitement yesterday. We ran into a bit of Mother's past. I said to her, "I didn't know you had a past. I thought I was your past." She said, "You?" I said, "Well, we go back a long way. How does he fit in vis-a-vis Dad?" She laughed. "Oh, he was pre-Dad." I said, "Pre-Dad? I'm surprised you remember him. You don't remember to switch your blanket off." She said, "That's different. His name's Turnbull." I said, "I know." He said. I'd parked her by the War Memorial on her usual seat. Well, I went and got some reading matter. Then I waited while she went and spent a penny in the disabled toilet. She's not actually disabled. Her memory's bad, but she says she prefers their toilets because you get more elbow room. She always takes forever, diddling her hands and whatnot. And when she eventually comes back, it turns out she's been chatting to the attendant. I said, "What about?" She said, "Hanging." She was in favour of stiffer penalties for minor offences. And I thought, well, we know better, our Graham and me. I wish she'd been there, love. You could have given her the statistics. Where are we going for our tea? The thing about Mum is that, though she's never had a proper education, she's picked up enough from me to be able to hold her own in discussions about up-to-the-minute issues like the environment and the colour problem. And for a woman of her age and background, she has a very liberal slant. She'll look at my Guardian and she actually thinks for herself. Dr. Chowdhury said to me, "Full marks, Graham. The best way to avoid a broken hip is to have a flexible mind. Keep up the good work." They go mad round the War Memorial, so when we cross over, I'll generally just slip my arm through hers until we're safely across. Only, once we're on the pavement, she'll postpone letting it go, because once upon a time we got stopped by one of these questionnaire women who reckons to take us for husband and wife. I mean, Mum's got white hair. She was doing this dodge and I said, "Mum, let go of my arm." I didn't really wrench it, only the next thing I knew she's flat on the pavement. I said, "Oh my God, Mother." People gather round and I pick up her bag and she sits up and says, "I've laddered both my stockings." I said, "Never mind your stockings, what about your pelvis?" She says, "It's these bifocals. They tell you not to look down. I was avoiding some sick." Somebody says, "That's a familiar voice." And there's a little fella bending over her, green trilby hat, shorty raincoat. "Hello," he says. "Remember me?" Well, she doesn't remember people, I know for a fact, because she swore me down she'd never met Joy Buckle, who teaches flowers in felt and fabric at my day centre. I said, "You have met Joy, you knitted her a tea cosy." That's all she can knit, tea cosies, and bed socks, both outmoded articles. I said to her, branch out. If you can knit tea cosies, you can knit skiing hats. She says, well, I will. Only I have to stand over her, or else she'll still leave a hole for the spout. Anyway, I said, you do remember Joy, because she said she had some shocking eyebrows. She said, well, I don't remember. And that's the way she is, she doesn't remember. And here's this little fella saying, do you remember me? So I said, no, she won't. Come on, Mother, let's get you up. Only she says, remember you? Of course, it's Frank Turnbull. It must be 50 years. He said 52. Filey, 1934. She said sea crest. He said no sand in the bedrooms. And they both cracked out laughing. Meanwhile, she's still stuck on the cold pavement. I said, come along, Mother. We don't want piles. Only he butts in again. He says, with respect, it's advisable not to move a person until it's been ascertained no bones are broken. I was in the St. John's Ambulance Brigade. Yes, said Mother, and who did you learn your bandage on? And they both burst out laughing again. He had on these bright yellow gloves. Could have been a bookie. Eventually, I get my arms round her waist and hoist her up. Only his lordship's no help, as he claims to have a bad back. When I finally got her restored to the perpendicular, she introduces him. This is Frank Turnbull, a friend of mine from the old days. What old days? First time I knew there were any old days. Turns out he's a gents outfitter, semi-retired. Shop in Bradford and some sort of outlet in Morecambe. I thought, well, that accounts for the yellow gloves. Straight off he takes charge. He says, what you need now, Vera, is a cup of coffee. I said, well, we were just going for some tea, weren't we, Mother? Vera. Her name's not Vera. She's never been called Vera. My dad never called her Vera. Except just once, when they were wheeling him into the theatre. Vera. Right, he says, follow me. And he puts his arm through hers. Careful, she says, you'll make my boyfriend jealous. I didn't say anything. Now, the cafe we generally patronise is just that bit different. It's plain, but it's classy. No cloths on the tables, the menu comes on a little slate, and the waitresses wear their own clothes. They look as if they're just doing it for the fun of it. The stuff's all homemade, and we're both big fans of the date and walnut bread. I said, this is the place. Mr. Turnbull goes straight past. No, he says, I know somewhere just opened. Press on. Now, if there's one thing Mother and me are agreed on, it's that red is a common colour, and the whole place is done out in red. Lampshades red, waitresses in red, plates red, and on the tables those plastic sauce things got up to look like tomatoes, also red. And when I looked, there's a chip in the sugar. I thought Mother won't like this. Oh, she says, this looks cheerful, doesn't it, Graham? I said, there's a chip in the sugar. A detail, he says. They're still having their teething troubles. Is it 3 coffees? I said, we like tea. Only Mother says, no, I feel like an adventure, I'll have coffee. He gets hold of the menu and puts his hand on hers. Might I suggest, he says, a cheeseburger? She said, oh, what's that? He said, it's fresh country beef mingled with golden fried onions, topped off with toasted cheese, served with French fries and lemon wedge. Oh, lemon wedge, said Mother. That sounds nice. I thought, well, I hope you can keep it down, because it'll be the pizza story all over again. One mouthful, and at 4 o'clock in the morning I was still stuck at her bedside with the bucket. She said, I like new experiences in eating. I had a pizza once, didn't I, Graham? I didn't say anything. They fetched the food and she's wiring in. He said, are you enjoying your cheeseburger? She said, I am. Would I be mistaken in thinking that that is tomato sauce? He said, it is. She said, give us a squirt. And they both burst out laughing. He said, glass cups, Graham. Be careful, I will see up your nose. More laughter. She said, Graham's quite refined. He often has a dry sherry. Well, he could do with smartening up a bit, Mr. Turnbull said. Plastic Mac. He wants one of those quilted jobs. I've shifted a lot of those. I don't like those quilted jobs, I said. He sweats, Mother said. Oh, there's no excuse for that in this day and age, Mr. Turnbull said. The range of preparations there are on the market. You want to invest in some roll-on deodorant. Everybody could hear. And flares are anathema even in Bradford. Graham doesn't care, do you, Graham? Mother said. He reads a lot. So what? Mr. Turnbull said. I know several big readers who still manage to be men about town. Lovett Green's a nice shade. I'll tell you this, Graham, he said. If I was squiring a young lady like this around town, I wouldn't do it in grey socks and sandals. These shoes are Italian. Feel. I always think Graham would have made a good parson, Mother said, feeling his foot. Only he doesn't believe in God. That's no handicap these days, Mr. Turnbull said. What do you do? He's between jobs at present, Mother said. He used to do soft toys for handicapped children. Then he was making paper flowers at one stage. I went to the toilet. When I came back, he said, I don't believe in mental illness. 9 times out of 10, it's a case of pulling your socks up. I didn't say anything. Mother said, yes, well, I think the pendulum's gone too far. She didn't look at me. It's like these girls not eating, he said. They'd eat if they'd been brought up like us, Vera, nothing to eat. That's right, Mother said. They have it too easy. Did you marry? Twice, he said. I buried Amy last May. I was heartbroken, but life has to go on. I've a son lives in Stevenage. I've got 2 grandsons, one at the motorbike stage. Do you drive? No, I said. You do? Mother said. You had a scooter. It was only a moped, I said. Well, a moped, Graham, they're all the same. I can't get him to blow his own trumpet. I've got a Rover 2000, Mr. Turnbull said. Handles like a dream. I think the solution to mental illness is hard physical work. Making raffia mats, I'd go mad. Yes, said Mother, only they do pottery as well. I've seen some very nice ashtrays. Feather bedding, Mr. Turnbull said. Do you like these Pakistanis? Well, in moderation, Mother said. We have a nice newsagent. Graham thinks we're all the same. I said, I thought you did. She said, well, I do when you explain it all to me, Graham, but then I forget the explanation and I'm back to square one. There is no explanation, Mr. Turnbull said. They sell mangoes in our post office. What explanation is there for that? I know, Mother said. I smelt curry on my woman's own. You have to be educated to understand. I didn't say anything. He ran us home. Promised to give her a tinkle next time he was in the neighbourhood. Said he was often round here tracking down 2-tone cardigans. Your mother's a grand woman, he said. You want to cherish her. He does, Mother said. You're my boyfriend, aren't you, Graham? She put her arm through mine. This tea looks strong. Pull the curtains. What it was, we'd had a spot of excitement yesterday. We ran into a bit of Mother's past. I said to her, I didn't know you had a past. I thought I was your past. She said, you? I said, well, we go back a long way. She always takes forever, diddling her hands and whatnot. And when she eventually comes back, it turns out she's been chatting to the attendant. I said, what about? She said, hanging.
A Chip in the Sugar, starring Alan Bennett